Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan and Arnell here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show. Arnell, what's going on?
What's up? Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Very excited. We got a great guest for you. Arnell, take it away.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in to this latest episode of the Firebelly Social Show. We have a great show lined up for you today, talking with David, Chief Flavor Officer of Seed Ranch and Grown As Food. This episode is brought to you by Firebelly Marketing. At Firebelly, we help mission-based food and beverage brands bring people closer through social media marketing. So if you're ready to use social media to create more community and excitement around your food and beverage brand, go to firebellymarketing.com to learn more.
I'm so excited to welcome David Delcourt, Chief Flavor Officer from Grown As brand. Did I say it correctly? Grown As?
Grown as foods. Yeah. But, there's the asterisk there. So you play it however you want.
There you go.
Hey, welcome, man. I didn't even get through that. I'm so excited and geeked out. Welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
No, it's great to be here, and thanks for inviting me. It's always fun to connect with other food and beverage folks and kind of build this little community around whether it be social media marketing or delicious food or how we get our next sample into customers' hands. That's what we're all about.
So I was so geeked out about the name. I didn't even finish that. He's from Seed Ranch. And not only is he a founder, David, you're also a father of a now 8-year-old and about to be 12-year-old. So man, we're very, very glad to have you and welcome. And we're excited to talk to you. So let's start out with that very concept. That's something that Arnell and I care a lot about, is building community. And that's been kind of the prime objective for us with this show. Why do you think it's important, for us to build community for, other F&B founders?
So we obviously all talk about the pandemic and what that did to shift a lot of people's mindset. For me, based in Boulder, Colorado, we have a strong everything from farmers market to founder culture. We've got Naturally Boulder here. So prior to the pandemic, I really felt like, hey, I've got a good community here. We can interact, founders, getting together. During the pandemic, it really highlighted just how difficult it can be when we lose that person-to-person community. And LinkedIn was not a platform, that I really interacted with much prior to, but in that pandemic and post-pandemic, I started reaching out through there and other, other communities, but to start asking some of those questions, talking about some of the challenges we're facing, both as humans and as founders and as CEOs and janitors, CEO and janitor and everything in between is kind of what I do, right? So that idea of community being more than just your neighborhood or even just your industry, but a place where we can all share stories, commiserate, cry on each other's shoulders, high five, and really build something that can expand beyond just our little business worlds and founder worlds that we live in day to day.
I mean, I think that's wonderfully put. I mean, you were saying right before we started recording about how we have, not only shared values, or at the very least values that overlap, but a shared vision of the world. A lot of the people we interview or feature are wanting to make the world a better place. So I think that's a key part. And the other thing is, beyond shared vision and shared values, I think there's a sense of camaraderie. And those are all sort of, I think, core components for building community. So so I think that's super cool. And give us a bit of the genesis. When did you found the company, and what's your vision for it?
So in 2017, excuse me, in 2017, kind of January 1 was when we really got started with Seed Ranch Flavor Co. And the conception was leading up to holidays in 2016. My original co-founder and I, who we love cooking, both plant-based, and wanted to create some culinary inspired hot sauces. So I love spicy food. And so it was really, let's give some holiday gifts to friends and family. And in that process, we really hit on a few flavors that people were really enjoying. And I was transitioning from my last company into what's next. And that was a big question mark. And this seemed like maybe there's something here. And so smoked jalapeno and Thai green around that holiday period. And we offered them up to folks who had tasted them. And that batch, those 5 gallons of each, sold out in like 6 days. And there was an understanding that, okay, there's an opportunity in this category for something that tastes amazing, that has some fun, modern branding that people can really get behind and believe in the ingredients. So fast forward 17, 18, 19, those 3 years were really lifestyle, passion project, farmers markets from April to November, local and regional grocery. We partnered with King Supers in 2018 and Safeway in 19, and then Whole Foods Regional in Rocky Mountain in 2020, I believe, or maybe late 19, and just continued kind of growing. And so that leading up to really the pandemic, right, which is kind of this big momentous event that also had so many people asking so many questions. We were really just a hot sauce company, right? And then during the pandemic, my 2 boys, who are huge Annie's fans, love mac and cheese. I wanted to be able to offer them a dairy-free mac and cheese, and they have a couple of friends who are lactose intolerant and really can't have any dairy in any way, shape, or form. And so I started playing in my kitchen with a recipe that I was developing, and it took about 6 weeks to get them to go from, no, we don't like your mac and cheese, we want Annie's, to, oh, we actually like your mac and cheese better, and that's all we're going to eat now. And so that point for the Grown As Foods brand, and that idea of not just mac and cheese, in fact, but 1-to-1 cheese replacement in the center aisle of the store. So not touching refrigerated, not touching frozen, but really anywhere where you had snacks to boxed meals to, chips, crackers, etc. We wanted to have the best 1-to-1 replacement that's super flavorful. Not just vegans are going to eat, but also the plant curious people, on looking to kind of cut that cholesterol, that dairy, that heart healthy side, right, out of their diet, and really push into that space. So that was late 2020, early 2021, and then we officially launched the brand at Fancy Foods in New York in late June 2022. That was kind of the coming out party, if you will. And then we've been since either are in or been accepted into, I think it's over 700-800 doors at this point with that brand. That fun, obviously the name, As Foods, looking at the Liquid Death and the bitchin' sauce of the world, we wanted something fun and MacMan Kid. That brand has really Ranch hot sauce brand as well.
So that's super cool. What a journey it sounds like it's been. And let me ask you this question: what a discerning audience to work with your two kids, and getting them from Annie's. I know we've been at our family. We switched to a local butcher who does a lot of locally grown beef and chicken, and our son wanted to get McDonald's the other day, and he got it, and he was like, "Don't want it anymore." He goes, and so I was so excited. But I think that's just such a journey. I know Arnell and I were wondering, first with the mac and cheese, and then with the sauces, what is really making those products different, and what is exciting to you about them?
Yeah, so and I'll start with the hot sauces because that is such a busy and big category. You think every local farmers market, every region, every city probably has somebody who makes, Dunkin's hot sauce, Arnell's hot sauce, whatever it is. For me, it was about two aspects. One was flavor over heat. So there's a lot of hot sauces that just burn and don't have a lot of flavor. And so that was the entry point, was where there is heat, it has to complement flavor. The second was bringing that culinary inspiration. So, the title chief of flavor actually means more than just a fun differentiator as a founder. What it really means is that everything starts in my kitchen. So nothing starts at a co-manufacturer. Nothing starts in a lab or a flavor house or anything. It starts in my kitchen, every benchtop. And that's because I wouldn't feed our customers what I wouldn't feed my kids or my friends or my family, right? And then being in the kitchen, it allows me to work with real ingredients and bring that culinary aspect back into hot sauces. So we're not the biggest hot sauce company in the world. We just broke into the top 20 based on Spin's data for the natural channel, which was really exciting.
Awesome! Congratulations!
But thank you. And we tend to find that once our kind of flavor companions, if you will, find us, they're pretty loyal. Right, because of that side. So that's the hot sauce space in terms of grown as. Again, the problem coming into this concept was, here is a category. It's about 4.4 billion in the U.S. alone. Just mac and cheese. Kraft sells over boxes a day of mac and cheese. Wow. So a tremendous amount of mac and cheese being consumed. And here I am as a 7-year kind of plant-based eater, and there's not a single plant-based box mac and cheese on the shelf that I would eat, much less my kids would eat. Right. So that was the glaring issue, is, okay, none of these are tasty. None of these are, clean ingredient. There's a lot of goopy packets out there. So I wanted something that eaters like me, but that fundamentally was incredibly tasty. And the thin red line that connects the 2017 hot sauces from Cedar Ranch Flavor through to 2022 Grown As Foods is actually really around that umami and that savory flavor aspect of everything we do. Mm-hmm. So our umami sauce led to our umami seasoning. Our umami seasoning led to our cheddar craving kind of vegan cheese powder. That cheese powder led to me developing the mac and cheese And still today, you got that umami nature of especially nutritional yeast and various elements there in the mac and cheese that is the addictive savory flavor, if you will. So, if you take a bite of savory food and you immediately want more, that's umami, right? We talk about the fifth taste, but it's the same way as like you take a bite of a piece of cake, super sweet, you want more, there's fat in there. But umami is the savory, addictive side to food.
Nice.
Umami! I just wanted to say that, David.
Umami! I kid you not, for 3 years at the farmers markets and at events, and still today, we still get a ton of questions around, well, what is umami? Right. So it's a great opener. And I feel like it's almost as though our core customer, or our I shouldn't say core customer, like our customer that immediately understands us is a customer who understands umami.
So I have two questions for you. First, for people who don't know what umami is, explain that.
So, like I said, the layman's version is if you take a bite of something that is a savory food and you want more immediately, that's umami. Now, why is that? Well, it's the fifth taste. So sweet, sour, bitter, salty umami. It's a Japanese borrow word, if you will. It was a Japanese scientist, I think it was at the turn of the 20th century, who discovered glutamates basically and how they interact with our mouth and our tongue. And that's how we taste umami. So if you're familiar with MSG, well, MSG is a very concentrated derivative of umami, but everything from miso soup to a grilled steak to Parmesan cheese to porcini and various mushrooms all have a lot of these glutamates and that sense of umami. A fun one, for instance, is tomatoes. So raw tomatoes, if you eat them, they don't have a lot of that umami. But if you've ever made any type of long cooked tomato based, whether it be a soup or a pasta sauce, or at some point you basically quote unquote exhaust the tomatoes, and that's when they release all their glutamates. And that's why if you make traditional Nona style marinara sauce or something like that, you'll actually get that moment where the tomatoes are exhausted and you get this big rich flavor, rather than just tasting like, oh, I put some tomatoes and tomato paste together.
Right.
I love it.
Cool.
Nona style.
So,
That's hardcore. I love it. Italiano in the house. I love it. Arnell, go ahead.
Well, my sister owns an Italian restaurant in Milan. And she and her husband it's a farm to table restaurant. So I get all of a lot of the culinary inspiration comes from my family. That's where we always gathered in the kitchen. That's where we would break bread. We laugh, we toast. And still when we get together, it seems like, there might be, 12 rooms in a given house or an Airbnb or something. And we all somehow just end up sitting around the kitchen counter.
Family and community, that's a big thing. And, obviously being plant-based was really important for you when you were building these brands. And through our conversations with other, food and beverage founders, we're finding that, a lot of the, inspiration to do plant-based, to be vegan and to, include all these health benefits revolved around a need that they saw for themselves that wasn't being met. Do you feel like that's true for you? Why was it so important for you to be plant-based specifically?
So my journey into plant-based eating really started as an experiment, primarily around health and environment. And for me, it was, I've been in sustainability. My past companies were around sustainability and renewable energy, and so the planet side was important. It started as a month-long test to see how am I feeling. And prior to that, I was a pretty hardcore paleo carnivore, kind of love the protein, during that month, I started noticing a few things. One, inflammation and recovery. So I just felt like I had more energy. I was recovering faster from my workouts, from my expeditions, my mini expeditions into the mountains, we'll call it. And so I decided to just continue. And with as with many things, as you continue down a certain path, you start to learn more and more, right? In terms of, okay, now it's not just about health and planet, but animal welfare and questions around like, well, I'm not going to eat my dog. Why am I going to eat a pig? There's all of those pieces. So from the beginning, I really wanted the company to share the same mission, vision, values as I do. So we talk about people, planet, plants, and profit as kind of the 4 Ps that we throw in there. And I'm not necessarily an evangelist vegan, if you will. I think it's by far the best diet for humans to eat, at least the vast majority of us. But even just introducing more vegetables on the plate is never a bad idea. And for our company to be able to offer fantastic, delicious food that happens to be a little better for you and healthier. It's not a health food. It's not a supplement, right? Mm-hmm. And is just packed with flavor. That's a win-win-win for everybody involved.
Totally.
I love the term plant curious too. I've not heard that one before, David. Is that years ago we worked with a company that talked about, it was a plant-based food company that talked about they didn't want to convert people, who were carnivores or omnivores, whatever, but they didn't want to convert them necessarily to be plant-based. They wanted to get them to try one plant-based meal, per week. Mm-hmm. So is that sort of what, can you say a little bit more about what you mean when you say plant curious?
Yeah, and as far as I know, we came up with that term internally. And it was something that I've often talked about where, you think about the Meatless Monday or Mediterranean diet or you name it, right? A lot of those are about reducing the amount of bad food in your diet, right? So it could be, dairy is it's full of cholesterol and fat, and sure, my biggest hurdle to going vegan, honestly, was the creamer in my coffee. And so when oat milk kind of came on the scene, I was like, oh, thank you. Because the almond and soy ones, they weren't really cutting it for me. But the plant curious is exactly that. It's people who maybe they have a meal at your house that's vegan. That's really interesting because I always thought vegan just meant it tasted terrible, right? Okay, maybe I do want to participate in Meatless Monday because what's once a week, and this makes sense. Maybe it's that my doctor has told me that I have some worrying numbers, and one of the ways I can reduce that is by stopping eating red meat and cutting dairy out and cheese. So there's all of these different factors at play, and I pull them together to just say the plant curious, where maybe it's once, twice, 3 times a week. You're focusing on a plant-based diet and a mainly plant-based diet overall, even without, putting a stamp on it and saying that it's vegan.
That's super cool. And you've got some exciting stuff coming up, right? I think it's for the mac and cheese part of your company, Grown Ass Foods. You've got some cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, and we just announced that we launched nationwide with Sprouts in their innovation set. Super exciting there. We're launching here shortly with King Soopers and City Market, who's our Kroger banner in the Colorado area. We have some upcoming fun launches, both East and West Coast, and Harmon's out in the Utah area, and just continuing to kind of grow. We're already in Hygge throughout most of their stores, and I'm not 100% sure. I think it's about 108 stores or so through the Midwest. So what we've been seeing is a lot of openness to not only provide something delicious in this category and great food, but also a brand that pops on shelf that everyone from kids can get in on the Mac van, adults can get in on the grown as foods type of cheekiness, if you will. We get the occasional pushback from a retailer that's like, oh, we can't take you on right now because of the name. But I look at it. I've seen the success with bitchin' sauce, for instance, and I'm like, well, if Costco's going to carry bitchin' sauce, I feel like we can get there as a society to laugh a little bit at this.
Yeah, I love that.
I
Go ahead, Duncan.
I was going to say you got something. I can see it in your face. What do you got?
Yeah. I was going to ask, what would you say is probably some of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome, either with Flavor Seed, Seed Ranch, excuse me, or grown as food? Some of those challenges you already, talked about, even the name, getting into some of these places and having to overcome that. So what would you say?
Man, how do I come up with the top 5 challenges? I got 99 problems, and grown as ain't one, but yeah. I mean, I think there's always there's a few big issues, right? One that we have is just around limited resources, limited time, small team. How do we do a lot with that? We raised a little seed round last year to really push that brand out. And that was incredibly helpful. Seed Ranch on the hot sauce side was bootstrapped pretty much from the beginning. So we had the benefit of a relatively steady state small company, but that was, cash flow positive when we did launch this brand. And then dovetailing off of kind of resource constraint comes awareness. So as a small food brand in the space, and as a small brand in any category, any industry, half of the issue is just getting somebody to notice that you're there and become curious about what is this brand, what are they doing, right, and telling that story. And so we're constantly trying to drive trial and get people to notice grown as foods, and any way we can do that is great. Mm-hmm. And then the last one I'll just talk about briefly is the kind of inflationary and supply chain impacts coming from COVID and then out of COVID and what we're still seeing. So a lot of those supply chain issues in terms of increased cost, limited availability, longer lead times, those haven't shaken out of the system. And so we're seeing just a new normal in terms of where prices landed after COVID with a lot of these ingredients or materials. So they're not coming back down to pre-COVID. And then with the inflationary pressures, we're also just seeing an increase in price. And where we sit in this ecosystem and where most brands sit, besides the largest, we have very little ability to kind of raise prices on shelf in a quick manner. Yes, you can raise prices, and of course the retailers don't want that, and we don't want that. We want to give high quality, affordable food to everybody, and the reality is when you have 25 to 50 to 100% increases in input costs, right? You got to pass some of that along to customers.
That's a super difficult situation to be in.
Yeah. How do you, you mentioned one of the things that you struggle with was like getting the word out, especially, grown as food is still pretty new. You're still growing it. What have you found has been the best way that you've done that?
So one of them is through existing relationships with Seed Ranch Flavor Co. customers, buyers, networks, et cetera. So people have known, all right, what David and the Seed Ranch team do is create incredible flavors. So this is probably going to taste pretty good, right? So that lived experience, it's certainly not an instant success meter. Of course, we're out there, talking and targeting our kind of core community and our core demographic around the grown as side. We don't have a massive marketing budget. We don't have a huge discovery budget. So a lot of that is about engaging in authentic conversations, right? And that can be from in-person events. So, we did a number throughout, 2022 and in 2023 now also we will, but in-person events from the trade shows, yes, but also Veg Fest and, vegan meetups and getting it out to those influencers and, talking heads who, share our kind of mission and that plant-based side. So those are, some of them. And then, we work really hard as a team to make sure that what we do put out there is incredibly authentic, and we kind of wear our hearts and, values on our sleeve, if you will. And that has definitely, hit home in terms of how people relate and interact with the product.
That's super cool. I mean, this is one of the reasons why, or maybe the reason why we do this show, where we focus in on, leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands, because there's such a passion to solve a problem, usually, within the family or within the community, and then that leads to a bigger vision for the world. And it's so great to see you pursuing this. And, we always, especially when we connect with someone, it's always, we always want to express our gratitude, for you and your journey to do this. It's just because you're doing your thing, you're chasing it, and maybe you forget sometimes what an amazing thing you're doing. So just for this moment, we're here to remind you. But my related question is, well, what's that founder life look like for you? You got a couple of boys, and you're chasing this dream, and meanwhile, there's a part of David that's still into the adventure. And tell us what that's like.
I often tell friends, people, and basically anybody who wants to know, but you have to be a little crazy to do what we do. It's a lot of hours, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of emotions, and it's at the smaller stage, especially, it's really hard to separate out, work life. In many ways, I talk about having 3 kids, right? So I've got my boys, and then I've got Seed Ranch grown as, because that's the way it often feels. And the highs are Everest, the lows are the Grand Canyon, and kind of just a steady drumbeat of up and down, up and down, up and down. And you put out one fire and 2 pop up in its place. And that's part of it. I also love what I do. I love making food for people. I love seeing, the grins on people's face. So breaking bread together on one table is the most universal, shared experience, I'd say. And food in that sense, sure, it's a tough business. Margins are low. But everyone's got to eat. And so it's an opportunity to put a smile on people's faces and good food in their bellies. And then, my boys, I think, are growing up with a great model for working hard, but also loving what you do. And, for anybody thinking about starting a company in general, right, but definitely a food company, it's kind of like you need, first of all, a problem to solve. We all forget that you're not making a company, you're solving a problem. So problem to solve, and then passion and curiosity, because the passion keeps me going when times are really tough. And then the curiosity keeps me pushing the envelope to, new white space, new marketing strategies, new products. There's so many things that I think we can accomplish at my company, but in this kind of mission driven industry, if you will. And just remembering that and seeing, okay, what's the next year, what's 3 years, what's 5 year out look like, and then balancing that with trying to be, the best dad I can, because 8 and soon to be 12, like you don't get those years and those hours back. And so, really trying to be present there. And I'm a few years out from a divorce, so I'm a single dad half the time. And so the breakdown, what it really looks like a lot of the time, is when my boys are with me, like that's priority number one. And so I say no to a lot of meetings, I say no to a lot of calls, I say no to networking events, I say no to all that, because it's just not it's not above that in terms of the priority. And then the rest of the time I'm with my other child, the company, and grinding and focusing and making moves. So
that's thank you, man. That's just you keeping it so real for us. I love that. And that's super cool. I was thinking before, a little bit earlier, and then I remembered your LinkedIn profile, is that you just remind me, some of your core thoughts remind me of Rusty Jones. And then I was like, man, you guys are pals. So of course, you'll have similar values, because you both, of course, he's the founder of Hello Water, and he talks about cleaning up the grocery aisle, and getting sugar off the shelves. And I loved your thoughts about, you're not trying to be where other people are trying to be. You're trying to create your own category and clean things up. And so just wanted to shout that out there. Any other thoughts you wanted to share before we wrap up today?
This has been a pleasure. I really like having conversations like this, because connecting on LinkedIn is great, but at least seeing you guys in person is excellent. And I'd love for anybody who's intrigued, grownasfoods.com. We're on Amazon also. My biggest ask for anybody listening would be, if there's a Sprouts close by, go and pick up a box of classic or truffle mac and cheese. Sprouts is doing something super interesting and needed in terms of this innovation set. They're taking small brands that otherwise wouldn't get a shot on shelf a lot of the time, or would have to really hustle to, and bring them in store nationwide where people can actually get to them. And so that innovation set, I think, is super interesting. And any way that we can all support and kind of filling that gap between the big national or like teeny local is great. So shout out to Sprouts for what they're up to. And then otherwise just grateful for the time and the opportunity to chat with you guys. I love what you're doing with building that community, and I want to keep that moving.
Awesome. Really quick before we head out, tell us social. Where can people find you on social?
So at Grown As Foods, on TikTok, Insta, Facebook, at Seed Ranch Flavor on the same platforms. And then I'm on LinkedIn. There's not a lot of David Delcourts out there, so I'm not hard to find. I'm food or otherwise. I'm always down for a conversation and for connecting with other good people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. And wrapping up, this episode is brought to you by Firebelly Marketing. At Firebelly, we help mission-based food and beverage brands bring people closer through social media marketing. So if you're ready to use social media to create more community and excitement around your food and beverage brand, go to firebellymarketing.com to learn more. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, David. And you've been listening to another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where we feature founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And we've had a great chat today with David Delcourt. Check out the brands, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.